May 7th, what makes it tick? So we're going to try to break the world today again using NDI Bridge as we kind of touched on a little bit last week. This week we're going to go a little bit harder. So what I did is I set up at our studio a space here in our MCR. I set up 8 of my cameras, and they're all 4K cameras currently outputting at 1080p 5994. We're going to use NDI Bridge going up to our cloud infrastructure, and I have them all pointed at one specific piece of content with a countdown timer on it and everything else. And let me change my resolution so that I can share this screen and it won't scare anybody with my very, very, very
Is
small
that the
screens.
Dell 905 bridge?
Yes, it will be the Dell. Yes, that would be directly from me. Yeah,
Because I see like 2 cameras, 3 cameras, 5 cameras only on
should
that
be
one.
8. Should be 8. Ocho. I see
I
all of them.
see UE 150,
Uh-huh.
two
But look at
belt
the bird
dogs.
dogs.
Are the belt dogs multiple cameras?
The bird dogs are all where all the cameras are going into.
What camera should we be looking at? Bird Dog SDI 1 through 4? I'm
And
sorry.
us, yeah, you're loud, John. Thank you.
Right.
We're gonna go with bird dog 1 through 4, and then
Yep.
the second bird dog. I think one is 191, the other is 192.
Yep. Says stream 1 through 4. Yep. Got it.
On all of them. All right, so now we've got the magic up with the monitor. Let me reset my setting. Isn't it funny how we get into a way of doing things and we forget about some things, like
We're all
always on
looking
top?
at belt dog 191.
Is that
What?
the same bridge as last week?
It is not the bridge
Oh, okay.
The bridge. Well, no, no, because I was coming
Okay.
off my local machine last week, which was an i7. This is a Dell 3930, so it has an i9 9900, and it has and then there's 2 bird dogs that are on the network that everything's plugged into.
Okay.
So the address for the bridge that we're actually connecting to is different. So let me do a share on this screen, and we'll see what we've ended up with. So this is my output coming from the cloud. So I'm bringing it back down. The top 8 cameras are 8 sources that are coming from here on our infrastructure here through the Dell, through NDI Bridge, and going up. And then that's the delay off of them. It's not bad, guys. Got to admit. So sync wise, it does look like they are in sync, as pretty close as I would say. If somebody wants to check, I guess I could. Yeah, I could take a snip of it and see. The bottom 8 channels are another 8 channels that I have coming in from the Sage Studios. And no, I can't take a snip. Oh, there it is.
So it looks like the last 2 have like 20 milliseconds of latency difference.
Is that what you're seeing on your side?
Yeah, because I use screenshot and it's the best for this because you can just hit print and it freezes your whole UI and then you can have a look at it.
Yeah, so what I just ended up with was 66, 66, 66 all the way through, and then the last 2 is at 68 and 64. So there's a little bit of offset those are the 2 UC4000. All the bottom row is the UC4000s, and the top row is all the PTZs, or PTZ UE150s. So that kind of gives you an idea of where it's at. And as you notice, they're pretty close though. The color changing on that is every second on the second, and that bar has been pretty spot on. I've been running this 2 hours now, so it's been steadily on sync and in sync during that time. So I'm not sure where our buddy Michael Lang, where his
So let's
experience
talk
did not
about your
go as well.
settings. What do you have a buffer set up?
No buffer. 0.
So my bridge, I had 3 sources pulled up, and I have no error message, nothing. But all the frames are frozen now. It says connecting to host, and it's stuck on that. Just leave and join again.
Yeah, leave it.
I
and
will
then join
just tell
again.
you real fast, Jeff. Ryan Hansberger's here, and he's from our R&D team,
Oh, hey,
and
Ryan.
he needs your information so he can really help you guys look at this and understand what's going on.
Right
Yeah,
on.
sorry.
His time's valuable.
Yeah, if someone could give me
Bring it,
bridge
Ryan.
info, I was trying not to interrupt the
All right.
discussion.
Oh no, that's fine. That's fine. All right. So Ryan, so the bridge name, the bridge ID that we're going to. Let me get this so I can see it. Monitors DDX. All right. It is 34.205.25.102. Server port standard 5990. The encryption key is Pizzazz, all lowercase, PIZAZZ.
I'm not getting any video now.
Yeah. On your NDI bridge, John, does it say connecting to host or
Oh, it's
connected?
lost.
No, just
I'm lost. It crashed.
So I think I have a theory on the bandwidth weirdness that we saw, that the bandwidth was different. Is it possible that NDI bridge displays the total bandwidth usage of your computer that you're running it on? So if you also run Zoom on it, it will also display the bandwidth used from that.
That's a good question for Ryan. I hope he can answer it.
Sorry, repeat the question one more time about the bandwidth.
So on the bandwidth in the application, the 2 numbers that are there, they felt like not accurate last time. And what I noticed now is, even without pulling or sending any sources and just being on a Zoom call, it shows 6 Mbits up, 6 Mbits down, which happens to be exactly what Zoom would use. So I was wondering if that just displays like what you would normally see in Task Manager, or if it's specific to Bridge.
You're muted.
Okay, how about this one?
Yes, that works.
All right, I'll grab my other mic. This headset's been on the fritz. So no, that should be just the bandwidth coming down from bridge. That is bridge specific. We did have a bug where we were seeing it not update properly, so it was getting delayed. But I believe that is about to get released with a fix if it wasn't already fixed in the 6.0 release. So for example, right now I'm not pulling anything from bridge, and I'm getting 0 and 0, and I have Zoom full screen, and I'm also multitasking some other stuff.
Mine, it's showing send 85, receive 104, jumping up some 175 now.
Yeah,
I have
now,
7 clients that are connected onto my bridge.
now that it's like now that I'm actually pulling data, it does seem like it's the correct thing. But like when I didn't do anything, then it was weird. But like, it doesn't really matter if you're not.
Yeah, so the host will have interesting information across theirs that the client side won't, but I don't think you're going to be seeing any of that on your end. Yeah. The only other thing that I've seen where it's kind of weird is to save on CPU cost, we're not pulling that information rapidly. Like we're doing a heartbeat check probably every couple of seconds and updating it, and the collection takes a second, and we'll average it. So if you're getting the normal spike of packets, you can see them sometimes combined, so it'll be a little bit higher than you'd expect your average to be, or a little bit lower, but it fixed itself over time.
Okay, so whenever I re-engaged our bridge from my local here, pushing those 8 cameras up, I noticed now that I'm out of sync. So
yeah,
I
and
lost
2 seconds out of sync between looking at 1 to 3.
camera 2 is
Yeah, camera
off.
2 is like 2 seconds off.
Yeah. So
I see the same thing, but I'm seeing the 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 relatively in sync. Only camera 2 right now is
right.
off.
So is the only way to reset that sync, Ron, is that basically stop the remote bridge and then let it push again?
Yeah, if you're seeing sync issues and you have buffer set to 0, it would probably be on the send side.
Okay, so where does the buffer come into play? Is it on, should that be adjusted on the host side or should that be adjusted on the send side?
Ideally, the buffer should be on the receive end.
Okay.
So essentially, you're building a buffer on the local machine that you're playing with bridge. So it should be received. So, for example, if you could actually see this live, if you have those bridge connected, you can adjust the buffer while it's live. Pull down a source from somewhere else, and then drag that buffer all the way up to like 3,000 ms. You'll see your source pause for 3 seconds and then pick back up. So it's only on the receive side. That won't affect your sending.
Okay.
Uh,
So I'm gonna put 1,010 milliseconds in there on the buffer.
I added 2,000 milliseconds, and interestingly, it made it worse for a second while it was like renegotiating everything, like re-pulling it. Now they're like not as close anymore, camera 1 and 3, and 2 is still a couple, like 1.5 seconds off, which makes me wonder if your belt dog might be crazy, Jeff.
Is there a access manager group that I need to add? Because I'm not getting any sources out there.
Groups to share are all set to public. Yeah, you know what, Jonas? I can test that locally here very quickly. Let me just see what a couple of those sources would be. So that would be SDI2. And
Who has a Tetra? Is that you, John? Okay.
Just came in the mail.
It's like, how the hell are you doing that?
Is that why you were underneath the desk?
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome. That's awesome, John. You are dedicated. You are.
I knew it was going to be close to when we started. I didn't know it was going to be literally like 5 minutes before.
Yeah.
All right. So between locally here, no, they're in sync. So the NDIs themselves are in sync here locally, Jonas. So it's happening whenever it hits bridge. So let me toggle my remote bridge and see if that helps. And currently we have 8 clients hitting the AWS bridge.
When he says, who has a Tetra? Sorry.
I just go snooping, looking for things.
Oh, I have something hidden in there, Lenny, or if somebody roots around and looks at sources. I got something funny.
Oh, okay. All
I
right,
saw
cool.
live text.
You found it.
The last known running version.
I'll have you know, someone convinced Richard to find an old sports graphics pack for live text, and we had it on an FTP server or something.
I have mine running on a tablet.
Yeah, it works.
All right, so that is working fine. So yeah, I just checked through, and all the cameras here are still seeing the same thing. Currently, right now, got to get the big cat out of the camera shot. He's been helping me all afternoon. All right, and let's see, bringing down that boy, talk about you get yourself in such a rat hole so fast, negotiating all the different names and everything. So let me ask you that then, Ryan. Since you're here, is there any suggestions in common practices of using the security groups or the access manager groups to help organize and minimize what you see and don't see? How would you approach that? How is it designed to approach that in the bridge world?
So for Access Manager, I don't use a whole lot of Access Manager outside of Discovery Server. I am a big Discovery Server fan.
Which means you can have many different discovery servers and point everything to that instead of using Access Manager. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and Discovery Server gives you a more cleaner implementation from a network perspective. You're pretty much eliminating all the MDNS traffic, which here in the San Antonio office, we have something like 200 senders and receivers. So if I can leverage removing 200 times however many each one of those has sources, MDNS traffic, that is substantial.
And that is kind of where what I'm finding too. It's like whenever John got joined from his Cloud City, when I was like, oh my, that was just a whole lot of content that came up that we were seeing a whole lot of sources. And I am on my specific application, because I'm using the Sienna processing engine. I have the ability to hide internal sources that are in the processing engine, which I do frequently because I don't want to see all those extra module sources and everything like that. So I've been trying to get my head around the design behind it, to design the system so that it's a little cleaner. So if people were looking for specific sources, they didn't have to go into the wild blue yonder to find them. Now, Guy, you joined in. I believe you have a machine there that you're pulling down from ours. Okay.
Yep.
So you're seeing the ones that are coming off of my Dell here, Dell
Yep.
Bridge. So Bird Dog, there's 2 Bird Dogs there, and there's 4 sources in each one. Can you pull all 8, and do they seem like they're all in sync? They're back in sync, by the way, now, as far as my multi-viewer is showing.
It'll take me a little bit to open up that many copies of Studio Monitor and get them all dialed in. But yeah, I will.
Wish there was an
And-
NDI multi-viewer. Should try that one, Guy.
Sync on my
There's-
end. Yeah.
There are NDI multi-viewers. Plenty of people make them.
Mm-hmm.
No, was saying he should use the aliases.
Right.
Yeah.
That one is neat.
Yeah, I have that one running in our VPC.
What about you, Sal? You got them? All of them?
Yeah, I got them. Yeah, they all look in sync.
Well, that's better. I mean, short of that one little wild hair, that's a lot better results than what Michael Lang was getting in his testing so far.
Well, it also shows some variability. Like, what did you do to fix it? You stopped and started it?
No, I didn't. I never got to that point. I increased the buffer on the receive side, and that was it.
So on the cloud one, the server we were pulling with
host.
earlier, the host, yeah.
The host itself.
Okay.
So
I'm trying
that's
to
all
connect to it from a cloud machine right now, and I'm getting the host is offline.
Yeah, so was I.
Is there a specific limit on how many hosts? I mean, how many clients a host can actually support?
There should not be.
Yeah, so
Well,
if
we're
you
gonna
join-
find that out right now.
Wow.
7. It must be 7.
Well, the
So
weird
so
thing
wait,
is-
so that's a good question. We could probably organize that. So
Yeah.
Ryan, on the bridge host machine, there's a session log somewhere, right? Couldn't we access that and everyone disconnect, and one by one we connect until we get this error? Or would the session log just straight show where that limit is, if there is?
There's not going to be a connection limit, certainly not with 7. we can pull the log. I don't think necessarily need to do it live. We can just grab the log after this, and I can look through for the error.
Yep. Okay.
I don't need
But
to
we've
turn
had
on logging or anything like that, right? It's just automatically logs it.
That's a good question. I run a debug build. It's always enabled.
Of course. All right, they're lost sync for a little bit.
So a good question also is, Jeff, what version of NDI tools is everybody running?
Very good point, Jonas. I apologize. I was supposed to do a Google sheet so we could log all this. We'll do it in post. The host is running 6. My local machine is also running 6, NDI 6, because I wanted those extra 2 bits. Thank you. And John, you're on 6, right?
Yep.
Sal just installed,
6.
so I'm assuming he's on 6.
It's 6. Yeah.
All right. Guy, what about you? Living large?
This is a 5.5 running in AWS that I'm connected.
So disappointed in you, Guy.
Locally, I'm on 6, but because of what I'm doing, and I was sharing my stuff as hosts on my 2 machines, so I didn't want to stop these hosts in case anybody else was going to use these that I had set up. So I have 2 cloud instances that are production ones that are going to stay at 5.5 for now.
Gotcha. All right. So
you're gonna love me. I'm in like 6-point future.
Yeah.
This
Look, if you want
this
to
build
send
is
that to
hours
us,
old. Yeah.
welcome to test it. Right?
I'll keep that in mind.
Well, that's great. Yeah, this is all right. So right now we got John, that's 1, Sal 2, Jonas 3, Guy 4, Ryan would be 5. Lenny, you're in 2, 6. All right, and right now it is showing 8. But John, I think you're in twice because you're greedy. I think
I'll disconnect. I'll disconnect from Tetra.
Okay, so that's another one that's coming in. But right now everybody's connected, and I did have the buffer is adjusted on it now at 120 milliseconds.
So that's something that we've actually been discussing. I can share a little bit the buffer. So buffer seems to be an area of immense complication. Saying that we have 8 connections right now. Conceivably, we're going to have 8 wildly different jitters and buffer settings that we would want to have for each unique source. So, for example, I know John's on an outrageously nice fiber internet connection. I imagine his jitter is very low. His latency is also very low. He can probably get away with a buffer somewhere in the double-digit milliseconds, where someone like myself, we're on a shared network. I have 100 other systems running here that are accessing internet and Teams calls and everything. I probably need to have a buffer closer to 250 milliseconds, give or take. So we're contemplating with the idea of actually building in a jitter test. So think of like speed test that you run on whatever your preferred speed test is, where it measures the jitter and also measures your latency. I imagine that we'd have a unified agreement that if we were able to put that in, everyone here would immediately utilize that.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One less reason to use ping plotter.
So where it gets kind of dicey is your jitter and your latency is going to adjust. It's going to be fluid as you add more sources. So like I have 1,000 down, 1,000 up here, but as we get closer and closer, somewhere in that 70% range, it's going to go, who knows what. My buffer will change or will need to change. So we were looking at doing an adaptive buffer, but I have concerns with that. So as you can see, if you drag that buffer in the positive direction, your sources are going to freeze until the buffer is built up to whatever the millisecond is. And then it continues. The auto buffer would essentially do that, and you'd probably only go one direction, would never come back down, and it just keeps on incrementally adding until you get to some sweet spot where we no longer detect drops. I'm a little conflicted on if that makes sense or not, or if we should just leave it up to the user, provide the information, and if we see that the jitter goes over your preset buffer on the receive side, log a message, show it in the
Sure.
UI and say, hey, you had one event where it went over this, you should probably adjust it to X.
That's what I would prefer.
That's
like,
probably
I would
better.
prefer that too. Yeah.
just
That's the
because
way I was
like
leaning.
if you guys like there's too many scenarios that like you'll write all the time with your automatism, and if it fails, someone will like be confused or weird about it. Would much rather have it deterministically where I set it, that's the buffer, and then having like that's the one thing that like kind of feels like it's missing with Bridge right now is like some logging, like, oh, by the way, we couldn't send you those frames, or by the way, it looks like there's an issue, something like that. I think that would be great.
Yeah, for example, I'm running a super underspec, computer or GPU rather, and while I was joining Jeff in the morning, depending on the settings that I chose for the encoding, like if I went too high on the quality and he tried to connect to it, it would just stop my server. Like there wouldn't be any errors or anything. It would actually stop my server altogether. And it wasn't until did a whole bunch of tests that I detected, hey, on this computer, I can only run it on low. I can do H.264, HEVC, but I can only run it on low. That would be another interesting thing to add to the encoders. Hey, you can do these codecs and you can do these profiles or these quality settings.
Yeah, so we have the encoder setting, which shows you, or the compatibility chart, which shows you if you have like a HEVC decoder or encoder available. So performance stats is something that we're discussing quite a bit, but it varies wildly based off content. So if I was an asshole and I knew you were connecting to my bridge, I would turn color snow on and then watch as whatever you're using to decode just falls to pieces because I'm an asshole. That decoding that on like an NVIDIA GPU is very, very different than say encoding probably equivalent to 3 or 4 green screen talents with minimal movement. So that again, we can give you a rough idea, and we're talking about that. But when we start getting into people that are doing complicated bridge setups or test scenarios like this, there will be a variable of inaccuracy that we're not going to be able to adjust for.
Got it.
So we're planning on showing as much of that data as we can, but understand like so much of it is based off content. We're asking the GPU to encode and decode these things, and the GPU can only go as fast as it can go, and we can do profiling on that and give you a rough idea. But if you're doing everything snow, or you have very like esports is a great example. There's usually tons of pixel activity
all at once.
Yes. Fast movement. Yeah,
it hurts GPUs.
High frequency detail. And then the other thing was, when it disconnected, it would be nice to have like an auto connect or a retry, attempt 3 times to, reconnect, especially if you're doing cloud stuff where you're not sitting in front of a monitor. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that. That's a great idea.
Definitely. We didn't actually finish, Jonas. I am pushing Ultra, and I'm at the preset on Ultra and doing HEVC. So I want to push it hard. Why take it easy, right? So what is that? 16 megabits, something like that. Yeah. And I mean, it's hard for me to tell honestly for what I'm seeing because I've got like 40 million windows open right now, but the content itself seems to be holding up. I mean, I'm not seeing a lot of edging or things like that. I can push a different source to that video. Let me do that. Something.
I mean, the encoding's super clean. Earlier with Guy's station, like I'm pushing out H.265, and then it was going into he was kind of recompressing it into H.264 and pushing it out of his vmix, like my same signal. And I was, grabbing that, like just looping all the way through, and it looked really clean. It looked really good.
That's good to know. At least that's good to know. All right. So I think we did pretty good at pushing it. Right now, I'm down to 6 clients that are connected. So I mean, I think it would if there is no limit, it would be good to have a limit.
Or a little
Just-
a little something, you're there, two more and you'll break, right?
Or like a
you won't-
waiting room. So
Oh,
like you need to. So it's interesting. Resolve actually does that for the Resolve remote viewer. You can disable the waiting room, or otherwise, if someone connects with your shared key, you have to allow people in still.
Sure.
Hmm.
Or you physically put a max, right? So you don't get DDoSed out of a program or something. Yeah.
Well, that's actually more of what I was thinking, Sal, is just the ability to set a limit. It's like, look, I only want 3 people to be get into. The first 3 in are the ones. And then from that point on, they're getting refused. So that way we don't have to worry about somebody getting information that went public because, like, Jonas copied and pasted it into the meeting here. And not that he was a bad actor, but anybody could do that. And then at that point, it's an open IP address and it's open for problems. So I would put that right up there with the stats list as the ability to say, please limit to 3 connections, 5 connections, or whatever. If that was the case. Even if it's something to edit in the background in a XML file, just to be able to set. All right, so let me find some content that I could put up on that specific device. All right, so I've got control, and what we're looking at is a 50-inch TV, and it's currently pulling a screen grab off of one of the other Dells that we have here. And so let's try to find something a little bit more engaging. I know for sure something that will break it, so I'm going to start that. Guys, while we have Ryan here, if there's any other questions while I'm working on this, I'm going to open up to see if you can stump the Ryan show.
Yeah, I guess from a troubleshooting perspective, you mentioned that log. Is it anywhere specific we should look for that, or?
So by default, we have the logs tied to Windows Event Viewer,
Okay.
Windows application logs. So any errors will show up there. So if we know roughly the time that it occurred, we should be able to go pull those.
Perfect. Thanks.
I was late to the game. Can somebody just put the connection information into the chat?
Yeah, you can hit it again. It should be in the chat already. I believe.
I never published it into the chat. I sent it to you in a private message so you could do it.
Go ahead and publish it, Jonas. I didn't see that. Sorry, I threw you under the bus. Yeah, I was trying to. So, all right. So let's break it, guys. Everybody hit it. Put it in the chat. Everybody open up your bridge. Hit that server, and let's see where the limit is. We'll find out quickly. I have a feeling.
Well, what source do you want us to hit?
It'll be on the Dell, Dell line. I have Dell 5, I think it is, and hit Bird Dog 1 or Bird Dog 191. I'm sorry, we just changed the names on them, so I'm not sure what it is. 191 and 192. So stream 1 on 191.
That would be UC 4000.
I just need to be able to get into this. So now that I'm into this, I can make it work.
Just let me know. What's not running?
All right, so We're at 11.
Which
Oh,
one
yeah.
are we going to?
So you're going to public address is 34.205.25.102. And the encryption key is pizzazz, all lowercase. We're at the lucky number 13, gentlemen. And pull from Bird Dog 191, source 1. And Ryan, this is actually, they're duplicating, or I'm sorry, Bridge is duplicating that source, right? So it's not pulling 13 sources from that specific device.
So when Bridge encodes it, it'll encode it just one time. The only thing that's going to get multiplied is the bandwidth utilization from that system to the WAN.
Okay. So Jonas, that addresses the question we had last week, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What is the system name that that the Bird Dog lives on? Is it the Dell 9?
Dell, yes. Dell
Dell 9-05 bridge, yeah.
Okay. Was it the 191 or 192?
191 SDI 1.
So we should be seeing a clock offset going on, right?
The clock countdown with a bar.
And right now between source 1 and source 2, I'm almost 20 seconds.
20 seconds?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. Moving the buffer up, see that?
That's no bueno. No,
Yep.
I'm not seeing that here at all.
It's down to
That's
16
the built-in
seconds.
replay feature.
No, I'm looking at the reflection coming back from the cloud, and I'm spot on pretty every time.
And now it's down to, no, yeah, it's
so it's sliding.
12 seconds. Yeah, it's sliding. You know, I'm 12, 13, one source froze.
But you're pulling those sources all down, Sal, individually, right?
Individually, correct. Yes.
Okay. But that's actually pulling from me. So you're pulling from me locally, not from the cloud. But my bandwidth, because you're pulling from the Dell, right?
Yes.
So that could be.
Yeah.
I could. Matter of fact, let me look and see what my bandwidth is right now. This is probably the most this system's ever, or this.
Yeah. I mean, my bridge on the receive side shows like 13 megabits per second or so.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what mine's showing. I'm clearly getting some drops.
And what's interesting is I can't see, like, the first camera I can't see anymore. I only see, like, I don't get frames for the first camera. I only get frames for the second, and see if I get frames for the third.
Okay, so my gig by gig is now 572 by 344. So
that could be it too, yeah.
And it's not what I would call commercial. I mean, it's a business line, but it doesn't have an SLA or anything like that. So when I call and complain, they basically, hey, we'll send somebody out.
Wanted to push this in the future. We could try to leverage Mr. John's cloud connection, which has like 100 gig pipe.
Well, Jeff, is the Sienna running in cloud?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, then you should be good.
Yep. I think so. My sources are a little wacky.
Well, give us a little more detail, John.
Hold on.
Those are the kind of bug reports that Ryan loves, right?
That's exactly a bug report that I give. It's broke, Ryan.
Technical term, wacky.
Yeah.
So
So I'm pulling in. So I'm pulling in all 8 bird dogs, the SDI and the stream 1 through 4, and I have it in an 8 box as my mix 8 output, or my mix output of vector, and it looks like sources, freeze slash not drop frames because it doesn't go to black, but the clocks freeze. But when any given source freezes and then catches back up, it's immediately in time with the other sources. Like it's not I guess it's not playing catch up or slipping
So
out
your
of
buffer
sync.
set to.
Right now, 0.
Okay. You adjust your buffer up to like 1,000. So
Okay.
it goes away. So I see it on your system whenever I'm pulling it.
Yeah, I've got it to 3,000 and it's still dropping and freezing.
So implementation wise,
Ah!
should
All the
NDI
clocks went away.
feeds from Bird Dog, from Bridge be any different than any local feeds?
Would Bridge be any different than local feeds? Sorry, can you
Yeah.
repeat the first half?
Well, basically, I tried to use the Zoom Room feature where they now have native NDI input. And I mean, that is still in beta. It works with local feeds. I tested that. Now that I use the bridge feeds, they never show up. Like, no frames ever show up in Zoom. And it just crashed my Zoom Room twice now.
So that could be Zoom not supporting HX or whatever you have coming down.
Probably it. That's a great idea. So I would then need to like send it through another NDI bridge that converts it back to NDI.
NDI full
Yeah,
NDI.
you could do a local transcode to full bandwidth. That's correct. Yeah, exactly what
Sure.
Jeff said.
Or you could use the Sienna processing engine, Jonas. You have one of those.
Sorry,
in your
what
back
did you
pocket.
say? There was like a big 1K tone just right there.
He said that with an ADA mini. With an ADA mini, you can convert it back.
One day. All right. So I put on the I'm gonna break your compression screen that comes out of the processing engine, and if that doesn't look like poo poo, I don't know what will, because it is every pixel moving all at once everywhere, changing colors and movement.
Yeah, I'm not getting much of anything anymore.
Yeah, it's just
Starting to-
freezing.
I'm starting to get freezes.
So
Well,
I
I'm
wouldn't be
gonna-
surprised if at this point we're not seeing a decode issue, but an encode issue.
That's I just flipped over to see, and my GPU. Let's see. So this has a RTX 4000 in it, RTX 4000, and it is currently at 100%.
We have the culprit.
And the CPU is at 33. So, yeah. Get what you pay for out of that, I guess. And that's the whole point of that signal, is that it has everything that you could possibly hate. And, yeah. All right. So, looks good here locally. It's just pushing through that encoder where it's not. All right, so with that in mind, let me find back to our other Dell and the timer. I'd like to see where it's slipping. And that is...
So what are the steps that, let's say we all got this running well, and now in the middle of our production,
Someone got my camera.
yells, hey, don't I see the ball moving
Ready?
twice into the goal now. Like, you have some
like
slippage
time sync.
issue.
You're saying, yeah, if
for
there's time sync.
example, you have like 2 seconds of time sync. What is right now, what's like, how do you work with that? How do you fix that? Is it a stop start of bridge, or like, is there any tools that you can use to fix it without breaking the whole show?
So this is you have bridge running, you have your connections down, and then something happens where everything gets out of sync, and you have a 2-second delay, give or take.
Well, basically, I'm asking if there's any issues, how do we troubleshoot with bridge? Is there anything you can do outside of stop start?
Other than adjusting the buffer, that's the only thing that you can actually do live. You can mess with your encoder settings. So if you're on the host machine, while the bridge is running, you can slide the encoder setting up or down. So if you find out that this would be very limited in usefulness, but if you find out that you're just barely hitting the edge of your GPU, you can slide that slider in. Or more realistically, if you're hitting the edge of your network bandwidth or your internet connection, you slide that slider, and you can do that live, and it'll take however long it takes for those packets to get released, and then your buffer on the receiver end, but you should see an improvement there. Outside of that, or disconnecting, reconnecting, there's not much to do. Like, you can look in the logs, but
And that's always a thing that affects all of the sources, right?
correct.
So ideally, you would set up 2 bridges, even if it's just so you can mess with the settings of one set of bridges and still use the other set for like your other feeds.
That's an idea. Yeah, that's an idea.
But you'll have like huge sync issues between 2 different set of bridges, probably.
Yeah, you can do the double bridge. That wouldn't be too much of a problem, as long as you're not connecting to both simultaneously. I don't think it really alter your the thing I would be worried about would be your network bandwidth or your internet bandwidth at that point, because it's so easy to duplicate connections.
Yeah.
Like for best practices, we always try to make sure our host is wherever the largest pipeline is, like just internet pipeline. So for example, if we're touching anything cloud, the cloud is always our host, since we have way higher network limits there.
Matter? Doesn't the host only do signaling?
Yes, but in a case like this where we have a dozen connections, everything's going through the host. So if you connected to Jeff's bridge and you're pulling down one of my signals, it's not going a connection from you directly to me. It's going you through Jeff's bridge down to me. So the bridge eats up not the processing time. There's no processing that's being done on Jeff's bridge, but his network is eating up whatever that bandwidth is. So if you're pulling 100 megabit feed from me, it's eating up 100 megabit down and 100 megabit up on Jeff's bridge.
So it is all
no
being
GPU
sent
time
through the host machine.
Yeah, think of it like a train station. Like he's got the conductor station there. Everything has to go through him. So the host has to be ideally the largest pipeline. Your internet as a end leg can be limited to whatever number of sources you're sending and or receiving, but the host has to transmit everything from everyone to everyone. So internet requirements are high there.
Got it. And like in this scenario where we are all pulling the same feed of bridge running locally for Jeff, are we like actually all getting a different encode and like a different bandwidth feed that all go through the host, or is it like one feed that then gets distributed?
So let me answer this 2 ways. If we're all connected to BizVector plus dash or 20 dash bridge, Dell 9 dash 05 dash bridge, and then the Bird Dog 191 SDI1. If all of us are connected to that, Jeff will see one encode on his GPU, but it will be the bandwidth. So say he has his encode set to ultra, so 18 megabit. It's going to be 18 megabit times however many connections we have. So we have 10, 180 megabit that he's sending, but his GPU is only encoding one stream. So his GPU doesn't take up any more tax, but his network takes up however many connections. Where it gets a little different is, say I'm a join and Dell 9 or that Bird Dog is on my bridge, but Jeff's still hosting and we all connect to it. I still get one encode that's being ran for that 12 connections or 10 connections, however many going, that bandwidth out, but Jeff's going to see that both on down and up now instead of just out. So his download stream is going to be seeing all 180 megabit of that, and his upload is going to be seeing all 180 of that.
And this is the moment where Jeff realizes that he's paying for a whole lot of AWS bandwidth right now.
Yeah. We're at 15 client connections right now. So it's holding at 15. We set a record.
So then the host is not really replicating any streams at all, right? So the host just passes things along, but it doesn't replicate streams because right now, so that Dell that Jeff has, that's in his studio. We're all connecting to the host. That Dell is joining. If 12 other bridges try to get feeds from that Dell computer needs to send 12 feeds to the host.
So if the Dell computer is on the same network as the bridge in Jeff's facility, the Dell is just sending a single NDI stream to the bridge. Bridge connects to it with its
Correct.
one receiver,
Uh-huh.
encodes it into, in this case, H.265, wraps it in quick, and sends it out to all dozen of us. So all the loads on the bridge.
Got it. Yeah, but right now there's a host. So there's a host bridge in AWS.
Yeah.
And then there's a bridge running on that local Dell server.
So I have it in join on the Dell server.
Uh-huh.
Dell 5.
Okay, in that case, the Dell server is going to be seeing however many connections are connected to it. So if we have 10 people, it's going to see 10. His host bridge is only going to be seeing the transmission of data across it, nothing on the GPU. The only time the GPU on that host is going to be touched is if something local to it is being encoded.
Okay, but there's still 10 streams going from the join bridge on the Dell to the host, and then from the host to all the other bridges.
From the host individually to all of us.
Yeah. So it doesn't replicate streams. It just passes the information along. Got it. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, the only time that it would be doing any kind of transcode or decode is if something on the local network with the host was pulling something from bridge, in which case you would have to pull it down from that bridge host itself, or vice versa. So if something else gets added and wants to go through the host bridge to one of us, then that host bridge would actually have to encode. But in this case, it's acting more of a pass-through.
Yeah.
Well, I can say for sure we are tapping both these machines on the GPU side. Both the one in the cloud the T100 is tapped. It's at 100%.
So that's good to know, because like last time I think we thought that the host was just doing signaling and it was a peer-to-peer between
so it's not
sender and receiver.
So then there's really very little benefit to having the host
in the cloud.
I mean, it depends on how. I mean, for today's example, there's very little other than the port forwarding, not having to do port forwarding. It would be practically like if you had set port forwarding locally, Jeff, it would be probably better to just connect there. Like we're not getting any benefits from running a host on AWS other than just to facilitate the port forwarding, which you still had to do in the firewall rules anyway. So.
Well, I've got an issue where I am in that the outbound's also blocked since I've got a Palo Alto network that hasn't been yet configured. So I'm running into an issue. Outbound rules have to be configured. So I'm glad this test is here because it's letting me demonstrate the things that need to be done at this facility. Excellent test.
Well, last week we were doing it directly from my machine, and so that test, and we killed my machine. This one is look, I found my encode finally dropped down on the Dell, so I'm now down to 77-78%. So
I just connected from some sources. I don't know if other people are.
So we're still active with 15 clients.
So I guess if we wanted to take advantage of the cloud for this, we would actually need to set up 2 bridge setups. 2 hosts in the cloud. One of them is joined by your local system, Jeff, to shoot all those feeds up.
Correct.
And then use the cloud as distro and have another bridge that is, like, for example,
sending everything. Yeah.
If you would send 4 cameras app and then every single broadcaster wants to pull them, we would need a double bridge setup.
I could see that. But still, at the same time, the Tesla T4 is at 97%, 98. It's at 100 now.
But like,
I mean, you could still do the encoding locally and just set the second bridge in the cloud to do not encode, right? So that way it just
they just pass it through at that point.
Pass it through.
Like, why is
That's exactly what you do.
Yeah.
And if you set it to do not encode, does it still need a GPU or you don't need a GPU? Because that could make things cheap. If we can set an AWS server without a GPU, set it to do not encode and just use it for.
I'll have to see if that is still enabled, but if you don't have any encode setting, you shouldn't utilize or need to utilize a GPU. So if you're just doing pass-through, straight pass-through.
Mhm.
What I don't know is if the software is going to complain that you don't have a GPU detected.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, like
And-
Studio Monitor won't even turn on if you don't have a GPU on the machine.
Unless
That's true.
Unless you know a trick or two. Right, Jonas?
But that's a good question. So, for example, the Tessera, the new bridge hardware, does that have a GPU in it, or can you also just throw a bunch of CPU encode power at bridge, and bridge is able to use CPU encodes?
On the Tetra?
Yeah.
Tetra. Yeah. That's
So Tetra is going to have a Intel Arc like A60 card, and we're leveraging Intel's encode and decode for bridge specifically. Now we're manipulating it. So that system itself has a Intel CPU with an integrated GPU on it, and it has a discrete ARC card. So we're doing some magic behind the scenes to try to leverage both simultaneously because we have access to kind of two GPUs.
Yeah.
It's not as efficient because there's memory transmissions that has to go over the bus, but we're able to utilize both of those in a way. But for bridge specifically, we're leveraging that ARC card. So there's no NVIDIA present on that machine.
So, for example, because I've been looking at that mini Thorum MS01.
That's what I'm running here. Yeah.
What's really cool about that one, you can have an i9 1300, 9000 or
100, yeah.
numbers.
20 cores, something like that.
It's like 14 cores i9 power. Could I like just use that to encode with bridge, or would I still leverage the GPU that's on the chip for that?
So right now, bridge does not have software encoding support. So you have to leverage a hardware encode. So either the integrated GPU, a discrete Intel GPU, or a discrete NVIDIA GPU. And we have a different path for Intel, we have a different path for NVIDIA GeForce, and we have a third path for NVIDIA Quadro.
But
so right now,
Intel,
Jonas,
for Intel, it doesn't matter if it's integrated, like on the die GPU or dedicated.
No.
Intel's architecture is identical between the two. You just have more access to resources. So
yeah, if you connect to my station, Jonas, the MSO1, I'm actually running Windows inside of Proxmox, and I did vGPU on the integrated Intel Xe. So this is just using a seventh of the of the GPU, and I can only get away with up to medium quality encodes. But I'm doing HEVC medium, and it's, I mean, it's working fine. It's been running all day.
No, because we looked at that device, and like the cost is
It's
great.
awesome. It's awesome, yeah.
And like putting a Duo 2 card into it, like you can then leverage GStreamer or whatever to just send like SAT encodes and WIP encodes, and then if you could also use it for NDI, like now you have a really powerful
little box. And yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
waiting
exactly
for
what
the
I was looking
A1000 to
for.
come out. Yeah.
And it's a little more like, I was talking to Tucker and he's like, yeah, that makes way more sense, because like now cooling wise, you need to be a little less scared than with those Intel NUCs, where like you have the feeling if there's a little dust in there, they'll start to clog up because they don't have that much cooling. Yeah, but I'm seeing your signal now from it.
Yeah, from the, I mean, it's, and then I have another virtual machine on that same on that same bridge, on that same box. Yeah, doing VLC and output via, NDI or VLC and going over that bridge. So it's kind of,
Oh, interesting.
yeah.
right, so we've been at this for a while now. What does our sync look like on the 8? Let's see. Oh, yay, so many.
Jeff, I would like to know how much bandwidth we cost you in the end in AWS. That would kind of be fun. Don't know if you can look at that for today.
I only used it today, so this I could just look at today's. All right, so well, the important thing that I wanted to see was sync, and that I am actually seeing all. No, but as soon as I was about to say all in sync, it dumped off.
Yeah, but it'd be interesting to do the test again with the double server and then test sync. Then that way, yeah, you're just sending, 4 camera streams, not, 7 times 4, however many would, might be monitoring at the same time.
We're hardly ever. I mean, can you even imagine? Besides demo purposes or trying to break it purposes, it'd be very unlikely we would have this many people connected to a single bridge doing what
it's probably 2 or 3 bridges and that's it, right?
Yeah, I would think 2, 3, maybe 4 locations coming in. And many of those would be 1 or 2 for contributing or something of that nature, or maybe some pull downs for monitoring.
And with the architecture, your contribution should come up to the cloud and make your own news sources with it to pull from inside that VPC, not pull everything
directly
from bridge.
Them.
Yeah, exactly. Like architecture wise, this wouldn't make sense to do a production like this.
Yeah, number 2 still off. My PTZ 103 is just a little bit behind. Oh, it just buffered, and now everything's in sync.
On the receiving side, do you need a GPU to decode it? Like especially,
yes,
like you do.
Because I had to install it. No, excuse me. Sal helped me install the. I'll say it because Sal saved the day today on the server that has host. We fought to get HEVC.
HEVC extensions installed in the server.
Yeah. So if you're doing, so the bridge machine doesn't necessarily need a GPU on the receive side, but the machine that is pulling the feed through the bridge, if it's HEVC or H.264, you're going to want a GPU. If it's full bandwidth NDI, if you're a baller like that, you can do software decode on CPU.
So the sources that come out when you pull a HEVC source, does it not just get wrapped into HX3 at that point? Like, does it actually get transcoded again, or?
Yeah, so on the bridge side, if you have your bridge set for HEVC or H.265, it's encoding it as a H.265 HEVC stream. The only differentiators would be if it's HEVC 10-bit or HEVC.
No, I mean on the receiving side. Like, why do I need a GPU there? Shouldn't it just take the encode and put it into HX3?
I think right now the encoding and decoding is tied to a single setting, right? It'd be awesome to be able to have it split. And maybe just, I mean, I know it's hard to accommodate all options, but a do not decode setting, pass through whatever's coming in. Don't decode and just, have the, I know it complicates things, but yeah, right now it appears they're both tied, Jonas, that, encode and decode are both tied to a single option or a single selection.
Yeah, there is no decode option. It's just encode, right? So you're just encoding and sending it. And then whenever you receive it, it's up to the machine that has NDI receiver to decode it locally on that machine. So if it's HEVC, you need to have
what does it get decoded to?
It'd be based off the application. If it's like Studio Monitor or TriCaster or Vector or something like that, it'd be decoded to essentially raw video data, be completely uncompressed.
Oh, so like it depends on the source that is pulling if that is fine taking HX or like.
Right. So like there's certain devices that can't handle H.264 and there's plenty of devices that can't handle HEVC because they don't have the decode license. So like a Windows system, if you wanted to decode, you have to have the license. Otherwise, no dice. You just don't get anything. but that's based off of the receiver machine, not even the bridge receiver. It's based off of wherever that NDI receiver that's pulling the feed ultimately ends. That's
so like if I have a receiver that doesn't support H.264 and H.265, my bridge receiver will actually transcode the received H.265 into full NDI again.
No. So there's no decoding that occurs on the bridge.
And then
now,
why does it have the decode compatibility check? What is that for? It's just general information? Because there is a decode, when you go to the compatibility check, it shows you the encode capabilities and the decode capabilities.
The decode would be if you're doing a okay, so the decode's needed if you're retranscoding
Got it. Okay.
something. So if you have a H.264 signal coming down and you want to set your bridge to let me redo this.
Full NDI, for example.
Or other way around. If you had a PTZ camera that's doing HX and it's going through a bridge that's set to HEVC, it's going to decode whatever that standard HX is, retranscode it as HEVC and send up. So that's why you need to know what the decoder is. But generally, then this is on me because I get lazy. I deal with too much full bandwidth NDI. It's only transcode. We're only retranscoding it. But the decode would happen if you have something that does not match what your transcode in bridge is trying to send.
So a receiving bridge has no reason to need a GPU, correct?
Correct. If you don't want to send anything back in return.
Okay.
That's good to know. So we could set up two C5 instances with NDI bridge on them for the cloud distribution tie. One receiving, one sending, set it to do not transcode.
Assuming the app can let you start. I can't remember when I was struggling with the with the GPU pass through and stuff like that, and I don't think you can start the bridge without a GPU. I'm not sure about that though.
You can probably like fake OpenGL drivers and then it'll on the check.
Sure, true.
That's what we do with Studio Monitor. You just download the Mesa virtual OpenGL drivers, you place them next to the exe file, and then suddenly you have Studio Monitor fully functioning on C5.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know.
Things we have to do. Save that 37 cents on an instance running.
I was just gonna say, what's the difference between the C5 and a G4? Like, are we talking about a quarter? Are we talking about
I'll tell you what the difference is. The difference is, and Jonas was there with us.
What's the cost of a gumball in a gumball machine these days?
Price. It's not the price. It's availability. It's because some jackass up in Ohio was running every single G4 in the U.S. East data center, apparently.
First off, there's no Grass Valley amp in U.S. East, okay?
Well,
so
and
that was one of the situations. We had to make C5s work because we couldn't get any Gs. It was impossible.
Yeah. The available, like if we, for example, if we do Zoom distribution with 40, 50 systems, that's where like even the 40 cents difference makes a lot of change. Yeah. And interestingly, it's only Studio Monitor having that issue. Like webcam and all of the other tools just work.
Yeah,
and I don't think we even did that fix on your system.
We did. We only needed it because I like to have Studio Monitor on a system so that if I'm looking at whatever source, if webcam, it's just a simple go-to. If webcam's not seeing it correctly, then I go straight to Studio Monitor on that machine and say, okay, I can see it in Studio Monitor. There's another problem somewhere else if that's the case. Maybe we're on the wrong input or something like that in webcam. But that was my main reason for having it working on C's. It's not necessary to get around the 32 cents, but it does help. When you're talking about 100 machines running for a week straight, it helps. Every cent helps for sure. This has been great, guys, and I love breaking things. And I don't know for sure if we came out with a really good decision that everything is. Oh wow, this is unbelievable. So the Tesla T4 is down to like 7% now.
Let's see. I lost my 4 sources off the main bird dogs, the bird dog SDIs.
but my Dell is tapped still. That poor little Quadro. Poor little Quadro. I paid so much
The
money for
Tesla's.
that Quadro.
You said the Tesla is down.
Yeah, it's down now.
It might
So-
be. It might be because of some of the cuts that Elon's making over in Texas. with Staff.
They fired more of the charges staff. Yeah, they just turned out the power. No, I just that was the one thing that I was concerned about is like making a true template of exactly what hardware we needed for these remote encoders and the ability to send out remote bridge systems. I still want to go back and try the little NUCs that I have now. I'm running on one of my NUCs. This is a NUC 13, so it's one of the newest ones. And I have Sienna Cloud on it. So that we used to be NDI Cloud. So that is all running on Linux, and I'm maybe at like 8%, 10% CPU on it. So it's running super lightweight. And that unit itself never gets hot. And I've been pulling 8 feeds directly off of it all day. So, there are some other things out there that are running. Is there any chance, I probably know the answer to this, but is there any chance of an Ubuntu version of Bridge for the cloud or for virtualization purposes?
I unfortunately can neither confirm nor deny.
All right.
Sorry,
We
Joey.
cannot discuss future product development.
Wait, someone
guys
bring
have
up a safe
learned.
haven slide.
You have to turn off recording, Jeff. for
Yeah,
those
you gotta turn off recording to make Ryan talk.
that red light makes people nervous, dude.
Well, let's just call it a feature request for now. All right.
Yeah.
Noted.
Yeah, just for portability purposes. Yeah.
That being said, I think one thing we figured out today, what's really important with bridges, that you actually test the exact setup that you'll be using.
Mhm.
There's like so much variability of like, oh, your like receiver can't actually decode that, so like now it's decoding it there and encoding there. Like, I think that's really important that you actually have the whole chain with the exact software or hardware that you used in that case, instead of like just testing small bits.
Yeah, and I'm gonna keep doing some more testing over the next week or so, just to keep pushing a little bit more, because I'm interested in having this workflow work better, and especially with the new flex panels and such, that does add a lot of possibilities, and I love what you guys are doing with that. So, I think that's gonna wrap it up for today. Man, we broke a lot of stuff. I smell smoke in the back. I think back over there, my poor little Dale's been working so hard. Go shut him down, let him rest for the night. But I really appreciate you jumping in, Ryan, and helping us clarify some of these technical things. Lenny, thank you for making him stay around, or asking him, excuse me, asking him to stay around.
Yeah, he parked behind my car, so I couldn't leave. So.
That'll solve it. It.
Ryan enjoys it. He's the one running San Antonio these days, so he's not being made to do anything.
I know he's definitely done well in his new position up there. I'm glad to see all these new things coming out and working. That the Tetra's really cool. I gotta say, that was a cool bonus to see.
We're excited for it, and
Yeah,
I'm happy to join these. So keep me in the loop. As I have availability, I'll definitely try to join in.
As
Much
you said,
appreciated.
Intel graphic, it did already make me wonder if we're gonna have an AV1 version of NDI Bridge, because that would be kind of neat.
Oh, as
I
a
guess
possible
you'd be-
codec format.
I'm not saying nothing.
nothing. Feature request. Well, thanks so much, guys. And I just popped on my unhid my hidden people. So today we've got Jonas coming in from Stuttgart. I guess that's where you are today, right, Jonas?
Yeah, that's where
Okay.
I'm most of the days. I work remote.
And then we had Guy coming from the West Coast. We have John coming up from the GHA's from the West Coast over there of the U.S. But we also have our longest, I think this would qualify as our longest one, Miguel, all the way from Dubai. So appreciate you. Look there. He's working hard, I can see. great to have you around, Miguel. Been a while since we've seen your face. So, man, great to have you. And I want to thank everybody for showing up today. And I don't have a plan for next week, but we're going to work on it some more. And we will definitely reconvene again 5 o'clock Central Time next Tuesday. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.